Hello! Welcome. Oh god, how do I even start my own videos? That's always weird when you're doing it with someone else in the room. Hope you guys are all okay and all good. Welcome to another video. My name's George Lester, for those of you who don't know, and this is a different kind of video, and you may have noticed that I'm not alone. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you, Lisa Williamson.
Hello!
Author of The Art of Being Normal, All About Mia, which is just about in shot, and Paper Avalanche, which comes out on the 3rd of January 2019. Those wonderful, lovely people over at David Fickling Books have sent me copies of the book, and also asked if I would come and interview you. So now we are in your house.
I know!
We're in your actual house.
George is in my house.
We're actually in Lisa Williamson's house, and we're going to talk about book things, because that's what we do. Say hi. I realise I've just gone on and just talked for ages and not given you a chance to get a word in edgeways. What a typical cis white male. We're both nervous and giggly. It's weird.
I know, we haven't like, you haven't done anything like this for a little while.
No, it's been ages.
Because you've been doing.
Because I've been doing Mountain View things. So
because George is off being a superstar.
Off gallivanting and dancing all day instead of.
And I haven't had a book out for nearly 2 years. So this is
nearly 2 years.
Yeah, I'm really slow. I'm very slow, but because my books come out in hardback and then paperback, I trick people into thinking, yeah, but I'm not. I'm really slow and I need to speed up.
See, even because I mean, obviously, even knowing you, and kind of, I thought, oh yeah, Mia came out last January. No, it's all lies,
it's all
fabrications, and fallacies.
Yeah, and I keep going, yeah, the next one will be different. The next one I'm going to speed up, but we'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, you had, Flawed came out sort of in between.
Yes,
and that was sort of a.
Yeah, so Flawed sort of tricked me into thinking, I was like, yeah, I've got a book out this year, but I only wrote a seventh of it. So. Yes,
true. But I mean, as someone who was there in the room, there was a lot that went into that. So it was a huge collaborative process.
Yeah.
Okay, so Paper Avalanche, first book in 2 years, news to me, comes out on the 3rd of January 2019. This, in theory, is going up on Christmas Day. So if you're watching this on Christmas Day, happy Christmas.
Yeah, but also we've got other things to do.
Go and talk to your family. Yeah. Oh my god.
Go enjoy Christmas.
Go enjoy your Christmas Day. Doctor Who's not on this year, but I'm sure there's something on. Les Mis is on, right? Is that on this Christmas?
I don't think. Why?
They're doing it without the songs. Why are they bothering? I don't know. It just feels weird to me. Yeah. But anyway, Paper Avalanche comes out.
Just pause it and fill in and just sing them.
I know, that's what I'm going to have to do, because I'm going to be watching and be like, and this is where she would have sung I Dreamed a Dream. And this is where he would have sung Empty Chairs at Empty Tables. This is wrong! So Paper Avalanche comes out on the 3rd of January 2019. Mm-hmm. So let's start by you telling us a little bit about it.
Okay, Paper Avalanche is a book about a girl called Ro. She's 14 years old, and the book kind of opens with her being in a situation she doesn't want to be in. She really does not like social situations at all, actively avoids them, but she doesn't immediately explain why. And then a boy from her school, she's been helping out backstage on a school production of Grease, and a boy who was in the cast kind of is very chatty with her at the party, and she finds that very odd. She's like, why are you talking to me? I don't like this. And then he insists when she's leaving, he's like, I want to walk you home. And by the end of their journey, you work out why she was so resistant to him wanting to walk her home. And basically it's because her mum is a hoarder, and they live in a house that is, it's the house that really stands out on the street, because you can tell from looking at it that it is full of stuff. It's very neglected, very run down, but she completely denies that she lives there. And she has something which, in sort of the for many people who are affected by hoarding, they call a decoy house.
Oh my gosh!
So they actually pick another house often on their street that they pretend to others is where they live. So often they just decide, right, that's my house. So they will be dropped off by friends, picked up by friends there. Just a complete, this is my house.
Oh, see, that's really interesting, because when she did that, this is in the first chapter, no spoilers at all. When she did that and she stopped at that house instead, and you almost clock it, but obviously because you read the synopsis, it's like, oh, mum's a hoarder, and it was like, and because she went past that house, I was like, oh, okay, so subverting expectations, what's happening?
Yeah.
But it's I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
When she stood there and she counted to 60 seconds until
I've read a couple of memoirs of in both cases women who grew up with mums who were hoarders, And both of them had decoy houses. There was lots of language and vocabulary that they shared that is very common to the experience of being a child of a parent or parents who hoard. And one of them was the decoy house. It was something really, really quite common to use. So I knew I definitely wanted to get that in. So that's established quite early on. So yeah, no spoilers.
Yeah.
You, by the end of the first chapter, you're just like, oh, okay, that's why she was acting.
That's where we are.
That's why she was behaving the way she's behaving. Yeah.
Gosh. And so it goes on. So she doesn't enjoy social situations very much. And I think the interesting thing about Ro, who I love, she's such a sweetheart. Rose Snow. Rose Snow. She's such a sweetheart. And I think the interesting thing about it's really interesting. I don't know whether it's current climate or whatever, but I was reading that first chapter and I was like, oh, I don't like him. And maybe I also don't like social situations. Maybe I was like projecting, and it was like, I don't like this. I don't like you being near her. Get away. But you describe it. Is it Tanvi?
Tanvi, yes.
Tanvi describes her as an onion.
Yes.
Which is so appropriate because I feel like every time she interacts with someone new, you find out a little bit more.
You
find a little bit more about her. Where did Ro come from?
Ro is actually one of the hardest characters I've ever written, even though just because she's got so many barriers up. So her sort of she's not really. Her feelings around sort of being social, all of it is around, I don't want people to find out where I live.
Right.
So a lot of it isn't necessarily that she's shy. I don't think she is shy, really. It's more, I've got to have all these barriers up because I don't want anyone to know she's, the shame and the just responsibility is so deep. And also, it's just this feeling, well, she knows that she's in a situation that perhaps she shouldn't be as a 14-year-old girl. But yet she's got this sort of loyalty towards her mum. That means she's really torn between she there's a lot of the sort of pain and discomfort in where she lives, but at the same time she's so protective of her mum and their situation. So there's all this stuff that she doesn't want to reveal to people, and that just means she's got all these barriers. So I actually found it really difficult because you're in her head, and it's kind of sometimes I was like, well, would she even admit this to the reader that she's feeling this way? Because it's so buried down. So almost I feel like reading the book, you do feel like you're like peeling away the layers and you're seeing her be vulnerable and open herself up to people, which is something she never ever does. And so Tanvi, who is this girl at school, who she's not a new girl, she was at their school, then she got very, very ill and kind of left, and people sort of didn't really know what happened to her, and then all of a sudden she's back and she wants to make friends and she zones in on Ro immediately because I think she sees first of all that Ro isn't really attached to anyone, so it might be available, but there's something in Ro that she's just like, I really like you, and Ro doesn't understand that because she's just like, I have all these barriers up, I'm grumpy and closed off, why on earth would you be interested in me, and I don't want you to be interested in me, stay away. But Tanvi is just relentless.
She's persistent as hell.
She's like, whatever she's having, I'm like, I'd like some of that, because she just
gumption.
Yeah, it's gumption, and she just doesn't. It doesn't faze her. She's just like, nope, we are going to be friends.
We're going to be the best of friends,
whether you like it or not. So, so I almost felt like I needed someone like Tanvi who had at least a chance at peeling back those layers and getting to the root of who Ro is. Because I don't think Ro even knows. I think a lot of the time, so much of her existence is around her mum and protecting this bubble that they live in, that she doesn't really have a chance to develop her own identity or really work out, well, who am I and what do I want? And that's sort of some of the things that are explored in the book, like her doing something for herself for once, rather than it always revolving around her mum and the house and just keeping them safe and closed off from everybody else.
So on like Tanvi and Noah, your cast of characters is quite something, and I feel like you've had to create these people who are a lot more front-footed than Ro is.
Yes.
And you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how was that, as a writer, as you already said, as being in someone's head that is so, where the walls are up constantly, like how was that for you on book 3?
It was difficult, and I've now said I don't think I want to write another book where I'm having people get to know each other.
Right.
Because I did that in The Art of Being Normal with Kate and Leo. Like there was a whole book is them getting to know each other, which I really enjoyed. But often it can be difficult when someone is really resistant, like Ro is. That it's it's hard work for the other characters. So I did have to make particularly Tanvi, quite persistent and relentless just to get at it. So a lot of it was finding these characters that would that were very different to Ro, but would bring out this side of her. So they couldn't be too aggressive. They had to be sort of quite. So I think Tanvi, even though she's quite annoying, there's a charm with it that she kind of gets away with this sort of crazy, mad persistence that she has.
Oh gosh, with absolute murder. The things she does, like the things she puts Ro through. That I honestly think it's that bit of me that's like, why hasn't she walked yet? Because there must be something in Ro that is attaching to her in that way quite early on.
Yeah, I think because Tanvi is she's so open, and I think there is a acknowledgement, even though I don't think Ro admits it to herself necessarily, that Tanvi is being so vulnerable with her that she does maybe owe her something, but it takes her a long time to give Tanvi something back. And then once she does, I think each time they meet there's a bit more, and you can see Ro softening towards her, and just, you know, this like really lovely friendship developing that she's almost resistant to, but there's something that she's like, I just can't help it, and she's always like, I don't know. I mean, Tanvi is annoying, but there's a real sort of charm and sweetness and warmth with it that you can almost see yourself falling for her.
Yeah, it's not in a way that's like, it's weird because it's not in a way that's sort of off-putting. Like she goes on a bit. But not in like, but in a sort of like, she really means well.
Oh yeah,
like,
she's got a heart of gold.
And she's very self-aware. Like she knows she's doing it. Like fully, I think anyway.
Yeah, I think. I do. I think at some point she's just like, I'm not stalking you, honest, ha ha ha. When she's literally turned up, you know, all over the place, sort of to sort of get her claws in Ro, but in a lovely way. Yeah. So I was fond of her, and a lot of people say, I really like Tanvi, which is good because I didn't want people to go, oh God, I know I'm with Ro. Like, so I want people to warm to her and almost be sort of gunning for the two of them to be
absolutely
friends.
Like, I mean, when you're reading it, like you like really early on when Tanvi is sort of kind of prodding and trying to get closer, you're willing Ro to just let it happen. You want her to just be kind of be a bit more open and just sort of
just let her in. What harm is it?
Yeah, you kind of touched in your research like a little bit with the Decoy houses. So how much detail and how much depth did you go into when it came to researching the hoarding?
Well, I've been interested in it for quite a long time. So the first sort of germ of the idea came, years ago, before The Art Being Normal, when I was still writing The Art Being Normal, and there was a series on Channel 4 called The Hoarder Next Door. Yeah, and it was one of the things, it wasn't like it was like appointment TV that I sat down going, right, it's Hoarder Next Door time. But I just happened to be watching it one night, and I'd seen a few episodes, so I sort of knew the format, and I always thought it looked a bit too neat that psychologists and some professional clearers would go in and they would get to the root of the problem and then clear the house, and there was sort of this sense that it could be done that easily, which I was always a bit like, but I don't know, but I think it's more complicated than that. I knew nothing about it, but there's sort of a feeling that things went really deep with it. There was this one episode where it was it was often older people, but this was a woman who was maybe in her late 30s, early 40s, and had the 13-year-old son. And I'd never really seen it where there'd been like kids living in the house with it. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. And he was clearly loved his mum so much. And at one point, I think the psychologist who goes into the house was in his bedroom, and some of his mum's hoard had made its way into his bedroom. And he was sort of, asking him, well, how do you feel about this? And the boy, you could tell there was just such conflict in wanting to be loyal to his mum, but also that, no, this is really awful. I this is really difficult. I don't like living in this space. And from there, I just got the idea. Oh, okay. I would like to write something from the point of view of a kid who lives in a house like that. And I kind of parked the idea, and it was going to be my second novel, but it was going down a completely different road. It was almost like I was going to do it with a sort of a TV crew situation, but then that wasn't working. So I parked it again. Sort of wrote a draft that eventually became this book, but wasn't it. Wrote all about me, and then I just kept coming back to it all the time, sort of thinking, I do want to tell this story, I just don't quite know how. But then I was like, I need to follow it through. But in terms of research, I read quite a few books about hoarding. There's a brilliant one called Stuff. There's just loads of case studies of different, and pretty much always people who hoard, it can be traced back to some sort of trauma or abuse in childhood or teenage years. But what that might be can vary greatly, and it can be people who grew up in immense privilege, people who grew up in immense poverty, everything in between. You know, it just seems that something happened that they can sort of trace back and go, okay, we think it might be because of this, but it just showed that every single case was completely different. And then I read a couple of memoirs of two really good ones, one called Coming Clean and one called Dirty Secret, that were both American, both girls who grew up in homes where parents hoarded, and they were just fascinating. And really funny as well, like, and just full of these weird quirky details that but then it's the more you read about hoarding, you're just like, wow, you could see sort of patterns and stuff. So it was fascinating research. I really enjoyed it, and just very different to my experience growing up, because my mum and dad are the opposite. Their house is just pristine, and they used to get rid of everything, like to the point of which they'll get rid of things. I'll be like, why have you got rid of that? Like, you know, things from my childhood and stuff. Yeah, which sounds really like, and it was never mean or vicious. They were just like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Why on earth would we have that cluttering up the space? So many things I'm just like, what happened to that? And
Where did that go?
It's gone. So I had that. I grew up the opposite to Ro. It was almost like, where's all the stuff?
See, there's moments where she talked about all the cards and like the greetings cards that are there. And initially, I was like, oh my god, I keep so many of my greetings cards that I get given. But that was a whole different thing. It was greetings cards she bought. Yeah. That for, like, Bonnie is fascinating in that way. I imagine that. I'm going to put links to all these books in the description box, by the way, if this is something that interests you, because this sounds really fascinating. You touched on this again already, but you said that you started a draft. It was originally what you wanted to do for your second book. Yeah. And you wrote bits and pieces and you tried different things. So what was the process when it came to writing this book, and how has that differed from writing All About Mia, and especially writing The Art of Being Normal as well?
I found, and again I'm writing my fourth book at the moment, I'm finding that my process, I can't plan. I try really hard to plan, but the moment I sit down and try and write, I realise that the story wants to go off in different directions. So even though I don't think the planning is ever a waste of time, it just, I know I can't go into it going, oh well, this is how it's going to go. And so similar process. So often I start out, I think my problem is I often start with an idea. So it's, okay, there's a girl, her mum's a hoarder. Then what happens? And that was kind of what I started with Paper Avalanche. So very early on in a draft, I was thinking it was going to be that she was going to contact one of these TV programs, and then this TV crew come in and turn their lives upside down. But I didn't really, but then I was just like, but I don't know what happens. And that's kind of why I parked it. I thought I was trying to force things, and it felt wrong. And I think often for me, it's real trial and error. So I remember with The Art of Being Normal, so the characters of David, who's later Kate, and Leo, throughout so much of the book, in this book, they go to the same school where Leo turns up at David's school. Yeah. But for ages, I had them living in different cities and was trying to work out ways they would meet. Oh, wow. Which was completely mad. Yeah. And so I'd had them like all sorts of, gosh, when I think about it, just the most bizarre, like, ways of trying to maneuver them so they would be in the same place so they could meet and then have this meaningful connection that meant they would keep in touch.
Like serendipitous.
Yes, moments, and it just wasn't working at all. And it was just one of those, I think it was in the shower, I always get these moments in the shower. Exactly. And just like, oh, and I was like, why don't they just go to the same school? And because obviously the statistic of how many transgender students are in each school, it's more than two. So I thought, actually, it's not
unlikely at all.
Out of the ordinary. And all of a sudden I was just like, oh, that makes, and all of a sudden like things fell into place. I was like, oh, this is so much easier. So often it is I make things really hard for myself, and then I'm just like, oh, this could be a bit easier, couldn't it? And with Paper Avalanche, there was just a lot of, for example, there was always a Halloween sequence in it. But just working out what happened in that Halloween sequence and how and where it came in and what order things came in. I always knew that was there. So often I like pick things out. This is going to happen, and then it's sewing it all together, which can be the most difficult part. So I intend to write chronologically, and then sometimes sometimes I write things and then I change something else and I go, oh God, that doesn't work, then I have to go back. So it's just lots of toing and froing and changing my mind and dumping stuff and writing new stuff. So often I'll find that my books have stuff that is quite new, because often at the last minute I'm like, I know what to do now. And I certainly had that with All About Mia. I read the audiobook for it, and there was some of the stuff I was just like, not that I didn't remember it, there was some passages in there that I knew so well, and others which I knew were very much the final draft.
Wow, like just putting things in that
that just all of a sudden knitted it together.
Wow.
So often I'm a real in the race, I'm the one who comes up at the end, takes it, because often it is that at the last minute I'm just like, that, and then all of a sudden it makes sense. So yes, so it's a bit frenetic and I mean, one thing that often people, the biggest compliment is people go, I really didn't know what was going to happen in the book. And I'm like, that's brilliant, because I didn't know when I was writing it.
Me neither.
So part of me thinks maybe it's good that...
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, if I don't know, hopefully you won't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if I've summarised. There is no process, really. It's just...
I mean, it's sort of like, they've also, I suppose they're all their own beasts, I suppose, in a way. And I guess it's a different... So how is the process for book 4? What is that like right now?
Kind of the same again. Like, I had a germ of an idea. I'm like, it's about this. And then you start writing. And then I was like, well, but why? Why are the characters doing this? And then I stepped back and gave them reasons why. But that completely changed everything else. I had to start again. So it's still, the same germ of an idea. But it was sort of just changing everybody's motivation. And all of a sudden they're pretty much completely different characters. So that happens to me a lot. So
as in, like, you start with one thing and it kind of turns into... You kind of start with one thing and one idea of where something's going, and then it just sort of becomes its own living creature.
Exactly, yeah. Which is kind of fun, and sometimes... And it is always mad when you look back at, material that didn't make it. It's like, oh God, that was when I was going down that road. How strange. And often I feel that all my books could have been written in so many different ways, because I'm like, if I'd gone down that avenue, it's not necessarily wrong. No. It would just been different. And often I get really hung up on doing the right thing, like committing, like this is the right way to write this book. And I think you have to go, well, there could be loads of different ways. Like this idea, it could be that if I'd stuck and really worked at the TV crew idea, that could have been a fun book as well. That could have worked, but at the time it felt wrong, so I went and did something else.
How many words do you think you write per book? What is the final word count of these books roughly?
Normally about 80,000.
And so how many words do you reckon don't make the cut? I couldn't think of what it's
with the art being normal, I think probably double.
Really?
Yeah, but there was so much stuff that got dumped. With the book I'm writing, again, I think already probably at least 40,000 words I've dumped.
Wow. Jeez, that's a whole book.
I know.
That is a whole book's worth of stuff.
I know.
That's insane, but kind of amazing.
I was my second book was so hard to write, and I kept changing my mind.
I remember this.
Yes.
I feel like
there was a period where I kept going to book events and chatting, and they would go, "How's your second book going?" I'd be like, changed it again.
I remember. I think I went to maybe 2 or 3, and it was like, oh, how's that idea going? It's like, oh no, it's a different one.
I was in that whole year of writing this. I was just in a complete state of. I'd wake up just going, "What am I writing? What's this bit?" It was hideous. It was awful. And now I'm just like, oh, you should have just stuck to the one idea, because there's always I always have that with every single book. I have these commitment issues, and I'm like, it's not going so well because clearly this is wrong. I must write something else. So I had the beginning of 5 different books. I was like, can't I just put them all together and that'd be one book? That makes no sense. Just 5 different beginnings.
Postmodernism.
But no, not allowed.
So I guess second book syndrome is a thing. I think when I talked to Non, Non had troubles with remix.
Yeah.
And you had your troubles with me. Is this why you get bonus chapters in your books sometimes?
Yeah. So
is it the extra bits?
Yeah. So Art Being Normal has a bonus chapter that is completely is taken from one of those. I think in Art Being Normal, I'm just to check this. I think it was something where yes. So for those familiar with the Art of Being Normal, there's this whole scene on the pier, and in an earlier one, I had Leo jumping in the water.
Oh my God.
Because some kid falls in. So it was all very dramatic.
Very hero.
That's a deleted scene that's in. If you have this version that was Waterstones exclusive that's in there. So that was quite nice because I can make some use of it. So Mia again had quite a lot of stuff like that, because for a while, again, for people who've read all about Mia, there's a character in it called Sam, who is her older sister's boyfriend, and for a while I was going to have that Mia falls for Sam.
Aww.
But every time I wrote that, she was just like, oh, what are you doing? As if, sort of thing. And then I just completely had to take all that stuff. So I've got loads of really awkward scenes of trying for Mia, like being like, oh, Sam, and it just didn't work. So
oh my god.
So I was just like, okay, what is this book about? But then I realised it was actually about completely different things. It wasn't about, an unrequited crush at all. So so often I find out what my books are about by writing what they're not about and then going, oh no, they're about this.
That makes sense though. I guess it's like you kind of explore it and you're kind of exploring this little world you've created.
Yeah. So I don't feel like, I have to convince myself that I'm not wasting my time, just so I'm not waking up in a cold sweat going, oh my gosh,
I fully don't think you are. Like I can't remember who it was that I was talking to about this. It might have been my friend Victoria Walters, who writes women's fiction, and I think she was saying how she'll sometimes, maybe it was her, maybe it was someone else, but we were both talking about how sometimes you just have to write your way out of a problem.
Yes.
Like, this isn't working, why? Oh, I'll write something about this person and it would tell me. And like you do it with acting work, you kind of will make up an entire background for your character, like, given circumstances and things, just to kind of put that together. So on your worlds, because you've got these 3 little worlds that you've made, I know that when I interviewed Law Eve, because I asked this question to a couple of people of like crossing characters over, like how you think they'd meet and how you think they'd interact.
Yes.
And Law writes all of her books in the same universe.
So in theory they could.
So 1, do you do that? And 2, if you could pick a combination, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good question. So they're not the same worlds, but they're similar worlds. So without realising it, I fictionalise, but yet they're kind of based very loosely on real places. So in The Art of Being Normal, it's kind of, because I grew up in Nottingham, so I can't help but picture Nottingham. I always picture my old school, whatever. So the school in my head is always my old school, even though they're different schools. So in The Art of Being Normal, it's actually not set in the town where I grew up, but nearer to the centre of Nottingham, there's the River Trent, which is a big river, and there's a really nice area called West Bridgeford. So if you lived in West Bridgeford, you were like, oh, fancy. And then just across the river is this estate called the Meadows, where my dad grew up, and it's just 2 different worlds really. But you would never necessarily cross over, and maybe kids who lived in the Meadows wouldn't necessarily mix with the kids who lived in sort of the big old houses in West Bridgeford. So I wanted to do something like that. So that's Cloverdale, where Leo lives, is based on the Meadows. Like the house is based on my grandma's old house because she lived in the Meadows. Sweet. And then Eden Park is West Bridgeford. So that was very much.
Oh my god!
And you talk about the river and stuff, but I never specify where it is. And it's really nice because I remember once had a few emails from people go, "Oh, where is it set?" And this kid's like, "Oh, is it set in Wales?" Because I thought it's that's my town, and it was lovely. I'm like, no, it's it's not, but it could be. Of course, it could be, and I kind of like that somebody could go, yeah, that could be my town. So that's why I'm a bit loose with detail. I'm reluctant to say it's here or wherever.
Because even when I read. Any book, but in your books too, like the school that I see is when they're in a secondary school, they're in my secondary school. Yeah. Even if it's a book that's set in the US, it's either my secondary school or a secondary school that I've seen on TV. Yeah. So it's either my one or like the one from One Tree Hill. Like, that's what and it's
not making a decision. That's just what
I picture. Like, what does the classroom look like? Oh, it looks like that one. Yeah. Like there's I was reading some book that was. Had like a middle school teacher in it, and all I could see was my year 6 classroom. Yeah. And it was like just vividly like that's where they were. Yeah. And it was like they wouldn't be there because that's in Essex. Yeah. Like that's not what it is at all. So that's really.
But once it's fixed, it's fixed. And I sort of did the same thing. Mia lives in a town that I've just called Rushden, but it could be any town really, and that's less sort of fixed geographically. I've sort of picked and choose. That's
Shakespeare.
Author. Sort of cherry picked real things and not real things, and similar for the Ospera in
Paper
Avalanche. In Paper Avalanche as well. But my next book is actually set in like real places.
What? Insane.
Yeah, just because there's like this thread that does really rely on
Yeah.
them being in a specific area. So even though I'm still a bit vague, it's a bit more.
You'd be pick up on the clues and you could figure out what it is.
Yeah, you could go, okay, it's here. So and that's quite nice actually, because I feel quite grounded in the setting. So yeah.
So if any of the characters were to cross over,
I've always said I'd love to see Leo and Mia, like.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I've even had like thoughts like, oh, could I just have the two of them in because they're my favourite characters.
Really?
Yeah, just because Leo, he's just like
darling boy.
Oh, he's just a darling boy. Yeah. So Leo, just because I've had such fondness for him, because I don't know, there's something about him that I really understood, even though he was so little. And his experience growing up is very different to mine, but there was just something that I was just like, oh, I get you, Leo, and I just you just want to hug him. And then Mia was such fun to write because she's so unlike me. She's just like says what she wants, and just like the idea of it, like I just see fireworks. So I would really enjoy like throwing them in a situation, just seeing what happens. So I think that might be really really good fun. Yeah, and I think probably a Tanvi and Kate. So Tanvi from Paper Avalanche and Kate from The Art Being Normal would just go on
so nice.
They would be like the best.
All of these.
The best friends.
They'd be so lovely.
Yeah.
But so if you could return to any of them for a sequel or a prequel or a one-off short story situation, which one would you want to go back to? Did any of them have that next thing in them? Do you think?
Because I write standalones and I always write them thinking this is the standalone, and once I say the end, that's the end, and then it's up to any reader if they want to imagine what might happen. Like, that's totally your call and you're in charge. I get asked about a sequel to The Art Being Normal quite a lot, and anytime I do think about it, I don't think I'm going to do it, just because I don't know, I really liked the way the story was wrapped up, and the sense of hope and possibility, and I like that people might, because people say, oh, do these characters get together, or these characters, and I almost think I want you to be able to pick your own well, not ending, but the own future for these characters. But if I was to revisit them, I'd probably go to when they're 18 and that other, about to be
that other big
adults.
thing that's about to change.
Yeah, and almost see how they're handling that. And also because there's a coming out narrative in The Art Being Normal, I'd love to just explore them just being people out in the world, and almost with the gender identity to be, such a small part of it, and just see, how they're coping with being grown-ups and so on. So I really like that idea, but I would be so nervous of doing it. So part of me is just like, oh, I don't think I'm going to. But I do think about it, but I don't think
oh gosh, that would be amazing though if you did.
I don't think I'm going to do it.
That would be incredible. So you've done. I always ask this question too, because I always think it's really fascinating. And I was asking this question before Flawed was around. You've already done a collaboration.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Flawed was a 7-way collaborative novel published by Pam Macmillan, which was, let me get all the names right. I always do it in alphabetical order so I don't forget. Sarah Barnard, Tanya Byrne, oh god, alphabet. Holly Bourne, Melinda, that's not the alphabet at all. Melinda Salisbury, Non Pratt, your fine self, and Eleanor Wood.
Yes.
7. And so that was a collaborative experience. Is there anyone that you would like to collaborate with on a book, whether that be 2 or 3 people, or who? So dream list.
Oh god, okay.
Dream list.
I loved collaborating. I just thought it was great. It was so supportive and lovely, and just bouncing ideas around is just great, because you can't really bounce ideas around with yourself. No. Like, you can attempt to do it, but you often feel like you're just hitting a
ball at a wall.
Yeah, just like, give me something back. So I loved that. So I would love to collaborate with pretty much anyone who would have Non-Pratt and I have always talked about maybe doing something, because I think we write quite similarly, and often I think our process is quite similar as well, not just our styles. So I think that might work really well, and we just have fun together. And I think it would be sort of a very sort of warm and giving process, because I think we both have a lot of time for each other's work and so on. So that would be really, really nice. Oh gosh, who else? Now all of a sudden you giving me like anybody to collaborate with.
Anyone.
And I'm just like, I don't know. Well, he's the king of collaboration, but maybe David Levithan, because he's great at it, and I'll be quite cool, like a transatlantic kind of thing.
Amazing.
That would be really fun. So that would be great. And oh God, I don't know. It's just spoiled for choice.
There's
I don't know. Yeah, there's so many people. But I would also find it, I think with this being 7 of us, it kind of spread things out a little. I don't know. I thought, because sometimes I think, oh God, what if you let the other person down? Yeah. Or if they're just like, oh God, oh no, I don't know how I feel about this. But I think having collaborated now, I'll be less nervous about that. And I think, I don't know. I'll have to think about. Yeah. Have to think about that.
It was the most amazing room to be in. Like, as the chief note taker and tea and cake getter, like it was.
You were great at all of those jobs.
It was honestly, it was the most amazing thing to be part of. Just to kind of get to sit there and kind of just have you all kind of like bouncing these ideas off each other and kind of working out where it was all going to go. It was so fascinating.
I mean, it should have been chaos, but it actually wasn't.
I think it had so much potential to be just like...
Yeah, everyone I told were like, you doing what?
It could have been this big ball of mess, and it ended up being a really bloody good book. Like, I probably told you this already, but me and editor, mastermind behind it, Rachel Petty, would sit... when a new chapter came in, we would just be like, yes, it's in, read it now. It was crack to us. It was great. I've never understood serializing a book until that moment.
Yeah, me too.
It was like, yes, more.
Yes,
give me
yes.
more. You could have gone on forever, I swear. It could have just kept going.
I mean, it could have gone until all the characters were like, collecting their pensions and so on.
Yeah, it would have been brilliant. I would have read every chapter. I would have read it all just to find out where they all ended up. So, from your books to other people's books. So it's the end of the year, and hopefully you're watching this still in it might be 2019 by the time you watch this. How weird is that? So I wanted to quickly do a little wrapping up type thing. What were your top 3 books of 2018? I couldn't tell you what mine were, but I want to know what yours were.
Okay, so let me think. So I'm going to go with a book called Mud by Emily Thomas, which I loved. So it's YA, it's set in the 70s. Apparently it's sort of quite autobiographical, and it's about a girl called Lydia who, at the beginning of the action, I think she's 13, and her mum has died a few years before, and her dad's remarried and basically frittered away all the money, and he's just like, and she's got quite a few brothers and sisters, and he's remarried, so she's acquired like step siblings as well, and he's just like, I've got no money, so we've got to sell the house and move in on this massive Dutch barge in a brand new town, and the barge is like cold and it leaks, and it's told in it's told in diary form, and Lydia as a character is just so funny, but also you just feel for her as well. These situations she's going to, it's just brilliant. I've sort of said it's like I Capture the Castle meets Adrian Mole.
Oh my God.
I absolutely loved it. One of those books where I was so sad it was over, because Lydia was such a pleasure to spend time with. So definitely Mud.
Okay, so next one
I'm going to go with Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, just because I loved it, and it was so beautifully plotted. You know when you finish a book and you're just like, how on earth did she do that? It was one of those, and I'm just desperate to know what her writing process is, because it starts with a family quite well off in a very sort of nice neighbourhood, and their youngest daughter has set loads of fires in the house.
Oh my God.
Little fires everywhere. And then you sort of find out why, and it jumps back in time, and it's a really intricate plotting, and it's just brilliant. And like all the characters are sort of those so three-dimensional, and it's just clever, but not clever in like a we tricked you kind of way, but just like and just it's just sewn everything together so beautifully.
Oh, wow.
So it's one of those where I'm just like, oh god, I wish I could do that. So that was stunning. And my third one, I'm going to go with No Fixed Address by Susan Nielsen. So it's another YA, but probably like younger YA, possibly teen. I love Susan as a person and as an author, and there's actually quite a few themes in common with Paper Avalanche, because it's about a kid whose mother is quite a difficult character to kind of love, but they're forced into homelessness because his mum loses her job, so it's meant to be temporary, but they end up living in her van.
Oh my god.
And he a bit like Roe in Paper Avalanche, is keeping it secret from everyone, and it's just so beautifully told. And the main character Felix, he narrates it, and there's a lot of things he's telling us, and you can tell he doesn't quite understand, the meaning of them, but we know, and it's just beautiful, and it's just told with such warmth and humour, and it's just a lovely book. It's really lovely. So those are my top 3.
Cool. All links down below. And we touched on this briefly, like before we started the video. But most anticipated books of 2019, because we're coming towards the end of the year now. If this does go up on Christmas Day, then there's like 6 days left. And apart from this, which you should be buying with your Christmassy book tokens, obviously, because it's brilliant. What are your most anticipated of 2019?
Well, one we were talking about earlier is David Nicholls has got a new one out in June, and I love David Nicholls, and I like to think that I'm partly responsible for David Nicholls' success.
Pray tell.
Never met the man, but I've been a fan since he started, like start of a 10, and then the understudy second book, and so I bought one day, the day it came out, because I was just like, I'm going to enjoy this book. I just knew. I went to Waterstones in Victoria in Victoria, because I was working near there at the time. Bought it in hardback, read it in 2 days straight, and then just told everyone I knew about it.
Oh my god!
So they know, they say, one day was a real word of mouth kind of thing. I was like, my mouth.
That was
not
me.
just
my mouth.
Not just my mouth. But I was just like, I love this book, and I knew I would as well. There's something I was just like, I love his writing and the idea of it. I was just like, so his new one, which is called Sweet Sorrow?
Sweet Sorrow.
And sounds quite quite young adult.
It sounds a lot like YA, and the Shakespeare mention. It's actually, I've only just pieced it together in my head. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Yeah, I think it's got like
Shakespeare.
Yeah, sort of a Shakespearean sort of dramatic through line, which will appeal to thespians. So I can't wait for that. I'm also going to go with I'm quite lucky because I've got a proof copy of Sarah Bernard's new one, Fist Fragile Heart. So I've nearly finished it, and it's really great. And one thing I love that she does, she just lets her characters breathe, and often, it just feels like a real slice of life. You just are being with these characters in a really quite intense way, and you get to really understand them and under their skin. And I think often there is this feeling in YA that we have to be plot, and I just like, often it's just unfolding and watching a character go about their life, which I think she does brilliantly. So I think obviously I'll have, by 2019 I've already read it, but you should all anticipate.
See, that's what I loved about Beautiful Broken Things.
Yeah.
She's so good. She's so great.
Yeah.
Fierce Fragile Hearts is what it's called, the second one, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
Fierce Fragile Hearts.
Sequel to Broken
Yeah.
Things.
Like I think it takes place a couple of years later, so they're sort of 18, which is quite nice as well, that it's way exploring, when you're officially a grown-up, which there is some of, but I think we sort of need more of, because I think so many people need a bit of help to navigate that
and I
sort
think
of tricky time.
YA readers are quite, it's a broad spectrum of people. It's kind of like 14 to 24, and more, in fact 27. I think you're completely right. I think, and I'm really looking forward to Sarah's new one, actually.
Yeah.
I should know more about that. I should have nabbed a copy before.
Yeah, you should have. I would have.
Didn't.
Unfortunately, I've got about like,
oh my god,
40 pages, so I can't give it to you.
I'm not going to take your copy from you.
So definitely that.
So we've touched briefly on book 4. Can you say anything about what it's about, or is that jinxing it?
I'll give you one. It's about a girl who steals a baby.
About a girl who steals a baby. There you go, exclusive. Heard it here first. Baby snatching is 2020's hot topic. Will it be 2020? Will it be 2021?
I'm aiming, but I spoke to Mr. David Pickling himself today.
Oh my God, bow tie and all.
Yes, and
Wow.
and I said, I was like, David, I'm aiming for, I'm gonna tighten the gap, the 2-year gap. So we're aiming for 20, and we basically said, he goes, right, okay, 2020 it is.
From the man himself.
So I've got to speed up writing.
I do remember at one point, this was July 2018. I swear I saw a date like that somewhere.
Yes,
or maybe...
it was. And then, no, I think initially we were thinking May, then it was like July, then it was October. And we could have got it in October, but it might have been a bit rushed.
Yeah.
So in the end, I mean, All About Me was a mad rush to publish. But in the end, Paper Avalanche has been quite relaxed and nice, so I can see why they wanted to push to Jan. Yeah. And that's absolutely fine. Fine with me. So,
like more time to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. So now I feel quite chilled out about it coming out. I'm just like, it's good.
It's here. I've been with it for 2 years. Yeah. What about you? And finally, to wrap up, I do a lot of writing videos, and like I kind of documented the entire process pretty much of a book. And every time I interview an author, I always ask them what their best piece of writing advice is. And I know that there are writers that watch this, so what would be your best piece of writing advice for any budding writers who are watching this very video?
It's really hard because I love writing advice, and I'm always just wanting that nugget that like makes complete sense. You're just like, and now I can, And I think
now
probably,
I will go and create.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that almost like you almost have to not ignore writing advice, but accept that your process is going to be what it's going to be, and you can't try and like. I think if like me, for example, I've tried planning and it just doesn't work. I wish it did, and I go into it feeling really like, well, this one is. And that's not how I write. So often it's like just accepting what your process might be, even if that process seems ridiculous or completely uneconomical. But I would say probably my best piece of writing advice would be to just write. Oh, this is going to sound really vague and
do it. I'm here
it's
for
just
it.
be like, just write what feels right. But it's almost like ignoring everything, because in a way you do have to be like, I read YA and I'm very like, and get very inspired by other people's work and so on, but also then you kind of have to block that out and be just like, but what do I want to write about, and to just go after that weird germ of an idea and just go for it and block everybody out, because you don't know what's going to come out of it, and just go in with the blind faith that what that germ of an idea might turn into something completely different, and that's okay. And I suppose my writing advice is like, it's very flimsy, isn't it? It's just
I love
like,
it.
But
I love it.
It feels very like, I wish I had something that was like, well, do this, and then, but I don't. It is just because you write and see what happens, and some magic might come out of it. It might be a load of shit comes out as well, but in some, sometimes out of that shit becomes that one thing. Like Mia, for example, is one of my favourite characters. We kept following me from project to project, and I would abandon the project, but for some reason Mia would make it and come with me. So often I think, well, she was my bit of magic in the shit. It was Mia, and then she got her whole book. So it's my completely rubbish writing.
I love it. No, like the man. No, I think you're completely right. Like I mean, what else can you do? But that's the. Yeah. That's
and
the
it
thing.
is, and another thing as well is comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, it is.
So, and this applies whether you're published, whether you're unagented, whether you haven't written. But there's so much. You can fall down a rabbit hole just comparing yourself, going, oh well, like I often do it because I'm slow. I only write a book every 2 years at the moment, and I've got, I see other writers who are churning out books, and it's not like the quality is not there. The quality's there, and they're doing 2 books a year, and I'm just like, well, and then I'm just like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you do that? And that just is not going to be conducive to good writing and getting on with it. So you have to just just don't compare yourself to other people, which is easier said than done. And I've got a lot better at it. I'm just like, focus on what you're doing. Doesn't matter what they're doing. Also, if you hear someone's writing something similar to you, don't let it put you off. Keep going. I abandoned so many ideas because I heard someone was doing something a bit similar.
I think I remember you. one of the ideas I think for your second book
Yeah.
is one that was coming out by someone else.
Yeah. And now looking back, I'm like, you could have stuck with that. It would have been absolutely fine.
Yeah, and especially when I'm not going to name the book, but especially when you think about how that book's it just kind of exists now, and it's not done it's not.
Yeah, and you think, oh god, it would have been totally different. It would have been.
Yeah.
And the fact is, there's always going to be another book that's got a similar idea to yours. There just aren't enough. The thing is that every single story is individual, but actual germ of an idea might be quite similar.
Yeah.
But the way you tell it will be completely different. So I'm just try and block out all the voices and just stick to what feels right. So yeah, just don't compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
But again, easy said than done. But
Sounds like solid advice to me.
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. And that feels like a really good note to end on.
We've been talking for ages.
You've been talking for a really long time.
If you made it this far, thanks.
I mean, who knows? This might be like part 2. Like, I don't know how much. I'm so out of like practice with my YouTube stuff that I don't even know. I know I can upload 30 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if I can upload more than that. So this might be like part 2.
How exciting.
I know. So,
well, thanks for listening.
Thanks
if you
for
got
watching.
This far, yeah.
Put like a lemon emoji below if you made it this far, because I'd really like that. I just think that'd be really fun, and I'm going to keep track of it. Thanks so much for watching this video. Thank you, Lisa, for being on my channel.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All links to every book that we have mentioned will be in the description box below. Paper Avalanche comes out on the 3rd of January 2019. Links to that will be down below as well as Goodreads links. Go and add it on Goodreads as well. And that's the end of this video. Don't forget to put a thumb on it if you liked it, and comment something fun down below, a lemon emoji if you've made it this far. And I love each and every one of your faces, and I'll speak to you as soon as I can. Bye!